Hey everybody, we are here this evening at a town hall at Janelle's on St. Clair, and we are with
Eugene Miller.
Mr. Miller. We are going to discuss some things this evening. You are running for a seat in Cleveland. What is that seat?
Cleveland Ward 10 City Council election on November the 7th.
And why do you want to be the councilman? You were a councilman before, correct?
Yes, I also served on the State House from 2007 to 2009, and I was appointed to council in 2009 from Roosevelt Coates. Won the election that upcoming November 13, and 9. And then, unfortunately, I lost my last election. I'm running here again to continue on what I was doing, trying to help the residents of Ward 10 increase their quality of life.
So we're going to ask you questions this evening. We're not alone, so we do have an audience behind us.
Facebook Live, ask questions.
And Facebook Live, hello. Thank you for joining us this evening. If you have any questions, make sure you type them in. I will present them to Mr. Miller. Mr. Miller, we're going to ask you about your platform. Give us your platform, 3 things that you want to accomplish, and then we'll break those 3 things down.
That's good, because one of the things, I'm learning about being an elected official. The residents in the ward has 25,000 residents. You really have 25,000 shareholders. So what they're doing is hiring me to manage their interests. That's how I kind of look at this now. You're hiring me to manage your system. So one of the things that's most important as a Cleveland City Councilman, your number 1 job is to represent the community and advocate for them down in City Hall. Number 2 is to write laws. And number 3 is to have oversight of the mayor's budget. He presents that budget. That's my main job. And when I now look at management, because when I go knock on people's doors, you know what they ask me? They ask about quality of life issues. When I knock on someone's door on Woodside, first thing she normally says, what you gonna do about that vacant house next door? So I'm managing that problem for her. What are you gonna do? That's the first question they ask. Then the second question someone asks, you knock on the door, police don't respond fast. So what are you doing? You have to manage all the situations, because you don't have the power as a councilman to make the police come out faster. You don't have the power to force the commissioner to tear down that building. You have to go down to City Hall and advocate for them. You have to advocate to the mayor's Department of Building and Housing. You have to advocate to the mayor's chief of police for faster response. That's what you're really doing as a Cleveland City Councilman. And the thing I've learned, while you're doing all that management, what are you going to get judged on the most, Ms. Crenshaw? The development. Why my neighborhoods don't look like that. So when I'm elected in the council this time around, I've already know what most residents are going to call. Right now it's February, not February. Whew. Right now it is November almost. So what are people going to start calling about? Snow. You know they're going to call about snow. So you have to manage the situation. When the spring comes, they're going to be complaining about potholes. So you got to make sure those things are right. So now I've learned I have to build a strong team. So now I can advocate for development in Ward 10. I can advocate for new development. If you look out here, new development at 3 points. So I can advocate for those things. But if you're doing it all day long, chasing complaints, you're not going to get anything done after 4 years. So what's they going to say after 4 years, Mr. Crenshaw?
You didn't do nothing.
You didn't do nothing. Thank you, audience. I appreciate that. And that was a live person. That wasn't. So yes.
So when you say development, what do you foresee yourself being able to develop in this ward?
First, it's all about relationships. As a councilman, you have to have relationships with the business community. You have to have relationships, whomever the mayor is, so you can advocate for this ward. This ward is very unique. We have the highway system right here. We have I-190. You have Route 190. You have access to the freeway. We have a lot of industrial property. So we have the land. We have to advocate for brownfield development in Ward 10 so we can do those things. I have ideas. We all have ideas. But my ideas don't work unless you have the relationships to get them done. Over where I live in the Euclid Park area, I got an idea when it comes down to the old Euclid and Green bowling alley. How many of y'all bowl? Any of y'all bowl? Anybody bowling here?
Not anymore.
And not anymore. Okay. Maybe that's why it's closed. So that's an eyesore over at Euclid and Green. What I think we should do, at the city of Cleveland, we own Brown Stadium. Now we don't run it, we own it, and the Browns, they manage it. So one of the ideas is for Euclid and the Green bowling alley, why can't we buy that bowling alley and use it as economic development for that area right there? You can buy it, high school teams can bowl there, you can have different colleges bowl there, you can have residents work there, you can have young people work there in the summertime, and that could be an economic engine over there. That's just one little thing. But our whole area, you got to advocate for it. I have to be a cheerleader for Ward 10. That's what you have to do. You gotta have a plan because it's everything. Like right here, we are here at Janelle's, and if I know you can't see it, so I shouldn't even point. But right here on this point, we have 3 points. Over there, you have Save-A-Lot. That's a strong anchor. You have a Cleaners. You have Janelle's. You have a Schools. What do you bring right here to keep this solid? So I have to go talk to the businesses and the residents, see what they like here. Because it's not just what I want, it's what the residents want. Isn't that what you always say, Ms. Crenshaw?
Of course, it's what the people want.
People.
So what kind of businesses do you want to see in this area? Do you think the residents want to see in this area?
You want to live in a community where you can have jobs.
In fact, since we have residents behind me, does anyone have like a particular business or something they would like to see in the area that's not here? Yes.
I like to see a BMV. That needs to be here where the old Social Security building was. That would make a nice one.
Right. So
I talked to residents in this ward too. And a lot of them want another grocery store, not one of these Save-A-Lots or Aldi's, a real grocery store.
and when she was saying it was advocating for different businesses, so the BMV, the closest BMV in our community, I would believe, was in Lake County. That's going to be one right there, and probably on 55th and over.
70, 97 or 79.
Right, so those are things you have to go do. You have to go advocate, find out what they do. You do surveys. She was always talking about grocery stores. You know, we always want to have different grocery stores. So you got to advocate and find out what the people want. So my job is to go and talk to different industries and find out what would make this more attractive. Right now, we're trying to get Amazon. Everybody's competing with Amazon. So what do we have to do to get Amazon to come to Cleveland? It's because what's going on? How do you get Amazon? You got to give them incentives. So that's what you have to do. You have to get incentives for a BMV to come here. You got to get incentives for Kroger's to come to Ward 10 to service our area. Right now, they open up an East Side Market on 105. I have a vision to open up an East Side Market in Collinwood or in Euclid Park area because we all need fresh foods. So what incentives we have to have a fresh market? Just like on 105, they have an East Side Market. We need an East Side, Northeast Side Market over in our community.
So as I've talked to residents across the city, they all have the exact same concerns. They want to see medical more accessible, medical facilities more accessible. They want to see groceries more accessible. And actually, you know, again, like you said, creating jobs. And so jobs that pay above minimum wage so that people can have a living wage to, you know, take care of their families. What do you foresee yourself being able to do? I mean, you've been a councilman before, so you know a lot of the issues that people have. And if you since you're going to try to do it all over again, what are you going to do differently this time?
That's a good question. It's all about relationships. It's how do you manage the system? I have to figure out a way to take an inventory of this ward. This ward has 5 communities. You have Euclid Park, where I live. You have the Collinwood area. You have the 5 Points area where we're at. I'm sorry, 3 Points. And then as you go down St. Clair, you go to Superior. When you're on TV live, you got to make sure you do this right. You go down to the St. Clair Superior area. So you got 5 unique communities in Ward 10. We have to do a survey to find out what all their needs are, because each area has different needs. One of the things run for office, I can tell you what you want to hear to make you happy, but that doesn't go anywhere. You got to take an inventory of everything in this community. And when you're running for office, I have ideas, but I know at the end of the day, I'm going to have to go around and do an inventory in this area. In some parts of our community, it's stable. In some parts of this ward, it needs a lot of development. If you drive, one of the things that you were talking about is you go down to St. Clair, all you see is empty buildings from 105 all the way down almost to 55th. You have vacant buildings on both sides of the street. So that means that's opportunity for development there. And if you're over in the Collinwood area, we have the same thing. One of my residents, she ran for office. And one of the things she talked about on her platform, the up and down from 140th to 152nd, there's vacant buildings. What are you going to put in there? So one of the things I'm going to work on is how do you have different apprenticeship programs to help maybe rehab some of them buildings. But what's going to happen? Who's going to come in there? Do I attract the BMV now to come in this rehab building? Who do you attract? The grocery store to come in this rehab building? So you got to have all these different relationships. That's what you have to get done.
Oh, Derek Childs has joined us. Hello, Derek, because I was just about to bring up the container houses. Did you know that there's a block on St. Clair in this ward that has been purchased so that the container homes can be built on those lots?
I have to do the research. What's a container home?
Really?
Yeah.
Oh, Derek, why aren't you here?
Yes. I'm not going out there. It's a container house.
Okay.
That little tiny house that they show
No,
you?
they're not container houses. Are they were used in the military? They are used in the military for housing for our soldiers, but they've also become very popular all over the country, where they're taking containers, shipping containers, which we have tons of downtown at the Port
Container
Authority,
home.
and they are turning them into homes, and they are gorgeous. They are absolutely gorgeous. Derek Childs is the owner of the container homes, and he's purchased a lot of, I want to say it was maybe 79th. Don't quote me. Derek, you're listening, so tell me where you're going to put those container homes in on St. Clair. But they're also used, I've seen them in Washington, where they've used them for small stores. They've turned them into where small entrepreneurial stores where people can sell their clothes or their goods, and they're very economical. They're very safe. The paint lasts for over 15 years, maybe 20 years. Derek, I said I need your help.
Okay,
Type
well,
something
I
in.
have to-
So you need to
thing
look
I have to do is
into.
look into it.
Yeah, and it's a really good project. He went to Detroit a couple of weeks ago, to my understanding. And they're going to be rebuilding Detroit using the container homes.
Now, you were talking about Detroit. My predecessor went to Detroit, and I remember when he went to Detroit, they were trying to attract the job for him. That it was a vacant land right there. Yeah, it was a vacant warehouse. So it's Fisher Body.
Yeah.
So one of the things we have to do sometimes is go to other areas and find different projects and bring them back here as an elected official. Because you may have a different grocer in another city. Like I said, people talk about save a lot of Audis. You may have a different grocer who wants to be in Cleveland. So one of the things we have to do as council people is be ambassadors for our city and be ambassadors for this whole region and go to different places. Because I don't have all the answers. You talking about that container house? This morning on St. Clair Bills, they were talking about Ohio City and Tremont. I called in and talked about Euclid Park. Euclid Park is a gym. We're right there. If you go in our neighborhood on Green Road, we have moderate homes. We live in a quiet, nice neighborhood. But who's the ambassador? There's nice streets in Collinwood. There are nice streets down on St. Clair Superior or Glenville or Collinwood. But we got to be ambassadors. You always hear people talk about Ohio City and Tremont. So we got to be ambassadors. So what he was talking about as a councilman, one of the things I would do, because see, now I know how to manage the complaints. Because the complaints don't change. You're going to call about high grass. You're going to call about a vacant house. But now you got to be an advocate for that ward, because in 4 years, what are they going to say about you? What did you do about the community? They're going to ask about grocery stores. I want to look like the nice suburbs. So what that young man was saying is true. As a council person, I'm going to be an ambassador for this community and go to different cities to see what I can bring back to help. And if that's tiny homes, if that means rehab homes, whatever.
Well, it's amazing because the container homes, they're not tiny homes. They
I got to see this.
You have to see them. They are absolutely amazing. In fact, Derek has one of the homes off of Miles now, right when you get past Broadway. He's putting a model together now where you could see it. But a lot of the soldiers use these container homes while they're overseas, and they live in them, and they're very spacious. You'll be surprised. I'm telling you, it's something that you really need to look at. But it's definitely something that's taking off across the country, because they can put multiple containers together for for housing. And once they're put together and painted, and the insides, interior done, they're phenomenal.
You just did a good job of marketing.
Yeah, I know. Derek's gonna have to hire me. But yes, they're phenomenal, and you're going to be absolutely shocked. But also, again, those containers can be used for small businesses. So, and they're, you talk about, it takes less than 3 hours to put them together.
Oh man, so that means you're going to break it in your house or anything like
Nobody's going to be able to break in your house.
So I can go put them up. Okay.
Yeah, they can be put together in 3 hours, and the interior done within 30 days.
That's good.
So you're looking at housing that will be sustainable, and you're not looking at putting on a new roof every 20 years and painting every 20 years. And if I'm not mistaken, I think Derek said there's 180 different paint colors that people can choose from. And so It's an awesome project. I did interview him, so you might be able to go on my page and look at the interview so we can look at it. But everyone, I think, should look into it because I think it would be an awesome way to redevelop the city of Cleveland. They're doing it in Detroit.
All right.
So let's talk about crime, because crime is obviously an issue here. And last night it was tragic. A young man was shot by the Cleveland Police Department.
In our district.
Right here in this district. And it was very sad because his mother said that she had been trying to get him to stop, and she was afraid that at some point they would come tell her that he was killed because of his activity. So we do see a lot of our young men out here, and they're doing everything they should not be doing. And so what do you foresee yourself doing as a councilman to help our young men and women get off the streets and have something?
That's unfortunately what happened, because I read about it last night. And that's in our 5th district down on 93rd in St. Clair. So that's unfortunate what happened here. Crime is the reason why people leave the city. Crime is the reason why people don't want to live in our community. So one of the things we got to do, I was talking about earlier, as a councilman, my job is, the mayor is responsible for the police department. That's his job. He's the leader of the city. He's the executive of the city. As a council person, our job is to figure out ways to help the legislation and programming to help everything out. Now, crime, that's tough. Because one of the things I always go back and forth with some people, how do you stop random acts of violence? You know, and how do you do that? I don't have an answer for random acts of violence. We have about 1,400 police officers, and they can't be on every street. So one of the things that we're going to have to figure out a way to do with limited resources is to put on different programs to help residents and young people out. When I was a council person, one of the things I always made sure that young people in this ward adopted the schools, trying to be an example of what's going on. I've always adopted the 3rd grade class because I failed the 3rd grade. I don't have a problem telling you the hard times. I failed the 3rd grade, so I always go after the 3rd graders, always. Then I'll go after the 8th grader because that's when I got a lot of my mischief in school. And then I dropped out of the 10th grade, so that's where I know where to go. So when I was a councilman, I went to all the different schools to try to bring back and help them. Because everyone can't play football, everyone can't go do certain things. I believe in entrepreneur programs. I think that's the way to help people. You know, how do you get a person off the street? See, I don't think everyone's talking about just give them a job. I think we can also create our jobs. I think that's the way to reduce crime. If people have things to do, and there are tons of programs. You know, we got programs everywhere. I know people are going to say, well, there is none. I just know as a council person, I know that we have a lot of programs wherever you're at in this city. So how do you reduce crime? One of the things is how to get rid of a lot of these vacant abandoned buildings. When I was a councilman, I was relentless on trying to get rid of buildings. Now I understand when you and I go, we walk the ward, you know, you can't tear down every home. It takes a long time. I remember you was talking about with Mayor Stokes, what he did in his area. That's a good idea. That's what I was talking about with the apprenticeship program. In our community, we get, every councilman receives casino dollars. One of the ways I want to help reduce crime is some of these vacant buildings we're walking, why can't we buy some of them homes, use apprenticeship programs for those young men and women to work in those homes, rehab them, and then also teaming up with the church so maybe Shamika now can get the home like you would say what happened in that community, work on her credit through FHA, purchase that home so now that neighborhood is stronger. Now you can't buy every house, but my plan is to use casino dollars for 4 years and leverage those dollars to maybe buy 50 homes. It may take 4 years to do it, but that's what my plan is in reducing crime. Also reducing crime is to get into, when it comes to the different programs, you know, how do you go work with them as young people and be an example? That's my way of reducing crime. And also taking responsibility as men. If more fathers was engaged with their children, you wouldn't have a lot of different responsibilities. And I can't make Joe take care of his kid, but I could be an example and be in the schools and try to help things out. That's how you can change crime. It's not just a legislation, because we got plenty of legislation to change crime. That's not the answer. One of my former colleagues is talking about 300 more police, and I'm sorry, 400 more police. The mayor talking about 300 more police. We can put 2,000 police. We can turn this into a state of police. Is that going to change the crime? Is it?
No, it's not.
So,
studies have already shown that employment, education, and housing is what ceases crime.
Right.
And so developing those areas, I would think would be more important to mayoral candidates. But Hey, what do I know? I'm not running for mayor, right?
Right, so that's what the things, so those are the things I would be interested in doing, because you just can't stop random acts of violence. And if it happens to you, you don't want to hear that.
Exactly.
You know, you don't want to hear that, so I understand that we can't turn this into a police state. You can't have a police officer on every corner. Right here we have cameras. I invested taxpayer dollars in these surveillance cameras. There's one right there, but someone still threw a brick through the window. Am I right?
Correct,
And so the surveillance camera didn't stop the person from doing it, but we recorded it. So we have surveillance cameras up and down St. Clair. That's not going to stop the crime, but hopefully if someone hits that car, we have their license plate and go back and find out who the person is. You know, on Euclid Avenue, we have surveillance cameras. So hopefully that business that the lady was talking about, the BMV, I'm going here because it's safe. Now Shamika wants to move in the neighborhood because it's safe. That's how it changes. But if Shamika don't feel safe, the BMV don't feel safe, Kroger's don't feel safe, they leave it. If Janelle's restaurant doesn't feel safe, this is going to turn into a vacant building. She's going to leave and take her business to somewhere else.
Does anybody have a question for Mr. Miller?
No, I do.
Man, that's
Yes,
her
ma'am.
second one. Did she get a limit? You know how people want to do these
No one gets a limit.
term limit.
Especially not with term limit. You won't want term limit, so no.
Right, you don't need to
Yeah, you got question limits, and we have question limits in here.
Yes. Okay, go ahead. What's your
I
comment?
miss Councilman Miller the last 4 years because he's always been direct with the community. He's always been a person, one-on-one. That's why I appreciate those cameras that we have is because Councilman Miller did that.
He turned you to a
Councilman Miller did
congressman.
a lot of things for our community, and I look forward to Councilman Miller. I look forward to him.
All right.
Yes, ma'am.
Here's my question. There's residents in the ward that a lot of them, including myself, want more small business owners. One of the things that was talked about from the 145th up to where the Five Points Shopping Center is, all of that vacant building and just block upon block upon block, nothing. Something in the mind of Coventry. You know how Coventry have all the little stores?
Right, this is
None
like
of them is-
Coventry.
none of- Yeah, but look how many vacant stuff you got though. And poor St. Clair from 101st all the way down to 93rd or 94th, they have in 20 years, they have had no type of revitalization, nothing.
So what your question is, how do you attract more small businesses?
No, so my question to you is, what are you going to do about
One
it?
of
We
the-
have buildings that have been vacant, nothing's been done to the land for 20, 25 years. A lot of councilmen have been in this ward, okay? And the same buildings are vacant and nothing's been done. I want to know what you're going to do.
That's a great question, because we're sitting in a building I wanted to tear down. When I first came a councilman, this was just an empty building. And residents on my back about what you're gonna do. And I met the owner at a restaurant. And she said, I want to turn this into a business. And she says, I got a plan. And then we became friends. And I tried to help her from day one. So if you got to have people who want to be in our neighborhood first. And as a councilman, if that building you want across the street, that red building, if you was interested in that building, how do we work together? And how do we leverage the city's resources and the county resources to get you that building? First, you got to have people who want to be in our community to have it. Because what happens, here's an example. You said the BMV. So let's say the BMV first got to say, I want to be in Ward 10. I need 10,000 square feet. So my responsibility now is go find 10,000 square feet for the land. Let's say it's right there. So if they commit, now we got to figure out how do you commit city dollars to that project. That's what we do all the time. That's what they do with Amazon. And Amazon's
Well,
not.
there used to be a B&B at one time, from what I understand, from the history of this war before it became a social security place.
Right, and
But now that social security has gotten their own building on Waterloo, it's just vacant. But even before that, it's just block upon block of vacant building.
But you gotta
And what
work.
I'm saying is that can be renovated as small businesses, whether it's a butcher, donut shop, you know, people who don't have enough, a lot of money, but want to go into some type of their own business.
But that's the whole thing. I'll go back to relationships. If you have a relationship with the mayor's department, You see, you can't, whether the mayor, you dislike him or not, as an elected official, you still got to have relationships because this economic department has every parcel in downtown. So that economic department, they're out right now. People, if you're a business lady, you're calling the mayor's economic department asking for incentives. And we have to figure out a way to sell Ward 10 to business people. They have to want to come here. Because if, like you were saying, if you had your BMV today, and you say, Councilman Miller, I'd like to come in this ward. I'll say, hey, what you need? You need 10,000 square feet. Where you like to be at? On St. Clair. Well, we have plenty of buildings. So if you commit to coming to the city, my job now is to go to the mayor's department and say, Mr. Mayor, they have a project, the BMV wants to come, they want incentives. How do we build it? Well, the problem is this vacant building needs to be torn down. Once the BMV commits, then we start working together with a package. That's how the system works. So the councilman must be an ambassador for this area. But you can't have one of the things I learned is you gotta have relationships. And you can't have relationships with the mayor's department because of personality conflicts. You gotta have working relationships. Only way you're gonna rebuild this community. Because once you find out it's too much work, you know what you're gonna do with your BMV? You're gonna go to the next suburb. You say, I don't wanna do business with Cleveland. So I have to figure out ways to attract you to this city. If you wanna be in northeast side of Cleveland, and that's where you wanna be. But if you don't get any incentives from the city, why would you come?
I don't know, it's just that the one on Wake Park, they moved from Wake Park to where they are now on 79th, I believe. And it's like the only one right in the greater vicinity, okay? So it just seems to me that through all the years, and I've been in the Glenville, Collinwood neighborhood for 20 years, and I could just, or maybe, I won't even use two hands, the new businesses in the last 10 years. So, I mean, somebody gotta have a relationship with the mayor.
But one of the things also, though, that I've learned as elected officials, we gotta also sell what we've done. Because some things I remember also. If you say 2006, I remember you gotta make sure that you keep McDonald's there. You gotta make sure you keep, is that Rite Aid there. I remember the subway was built. That was built when I was the councilman. Now I didn't put it together. The previous council put it together. So I got credit for it. So there's some things, like here's an example. This was right here. This was a vacant building. Now it is an operating business. She's been here at least 5 years. I remember when this place had a rehab. Who brought that here? The previous councilman brought that here. That was vacant land. So it's some things in all our neighborhoods we got to be advocates for. I'm sitting here around, we have land everywhere. And how do you attract? But that BMV has to want to come here. Any other questions? Hey, how you doing, Miss 131st Alice? I got it right?
Anyone else have a question? Okay, so sum your platform up for us in 1, 2, 3. What's your first one?
Learn, listen, lead. That's been my whole thing from day one. I decided to run for council again because I've learned from previous mistakes. I've learned that this business is a people business. It's about relationships. I mean, she has a legitimate question, and I'm sitting here listening to her concerns, and I'm now ready to lead this community. That's what this whole theme has been about. Because being an elected official really is all about people. It's about people, people, people. And you have to be able to work with people who are with you and against you. And one of the things I'm going to leverage, being in council before, it's all about relationships. Once I get elected on November 7th, first person I'm going to call, if it's Mayor Jackson or the other guy, I'm going to call, we need to sit down, how we move this